Okay, so right now in my program, I click on the two-player button and it takes me to my screen. I was just testing out my two images to see if it works, and they do work, but I don't want them there yet. I want to wait until I click. So I'm going to go to my code, and I'm just going to comment these out so it actually doesn't draw them yet. We will draw them eventually. Okay, so here we go. This is kind of the tough part of the program, how we're going to get this to work. So when the first player clicks on any square, we want Homer to appear, and then the next click will be Marge. So what we're going to do is try and get that working. We're not going to worry about checking for winners or a tie game at this point. We're just going to try and get it working. So every time we click on a square, it draws an image, but it also flips back and forth between our two images. Okay, so the trick behind this is to make an int variable for every square. So for all 9 squares. So I'm going to call this box A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And so imagine that these are integer variables and pretend that they're all 0 at the beginning of the game. And what's going to happen is if player 1 clicks on box A, then I'm going to change this variable from 0 to 1. But if they clicked on box B, I'm going to change variable B to 1. Now, if player 2 clicks on A, then I'm going to change that to a 2. Okay, so these variables will all be 0 at the beginning, but every time the user clicks, it's going to be changed to either a 1 or a 2. Now, we're also going to need a turn variable to determine whose turn it is. So at the very beginning of the game, we'll make turn equal to 1, but every time we click on a square, we want to change this variable to 2. And then we want to flip back to 1, and then to 2, and back and forth like that. So let's go. Where are we going to put this code? So in the mouse clicked, actually, first of all, let's create all of those variables. So, if you don't remember, that determines how many players there are. So this the beginning screen has 2 buttons, and that will determine whether this is going to be 1 player or 2 players. This determines what screen we're on. Okay. So then I'm going to make a turn variable, and I'm going to make the default 1. So this will determine whose turn it is. This will be either 1 or 2. So it'll just flip-flop back and forth. And then I'm going to have 9 variables. I'm just going to copy and paste this. 6, 9. And these are going to represent each square on my board. And right now, they're going to be all 0. And basically, you're not going to show these to the user. So as the user is playing, you're not going to print these. You don't have to print these on the board. This is just internal in our code, just so that we can get the functionality to work. So if the user clicks on box A, then I'm going to change this to a 1, and then we know to draw Homer Simpson in that spot. But if it's a 2, if player 2 clicked there, then you're going to draw Marge in that spot. The one thing you're going to have to do is change, don't call it E, call it E1. And the reason why is because we have a variable called E right here. So we called our mouse event E. I mean, you could change that to a different value if you wanted to, but I'm just going to change E to E1. And then likewise, we're going to have to change G to G1 because there's this graphics object called G that appears in our program. So those are 2 little modifications you'll have to make. So if I go back to my drawing, I'm going to, just so I don't get confused, I'm going to change that to E1 and G1. Okay? All right, so now in my, if I look at all these methods, paint, start screen, draw board, okay, mouse clicked, So you'll notice we have some code here that captures X and Y, so where the user clicked. And if the screen is still the title screen, then I'm determining if I clicked on the player 2 button. Okay. Later on, we can put an else if and determine if they clicked on the player 1 button, but I'm going to save that for later. I want to get the 2-player game working first. So this is if screen is equal to 1. So what if we're on screen 2? So now this is the board. So now we're on the board, the playing board. Okay. And now the game has begun. Okay. So what I need to do here is I need an if statement to determine if I have clicked on this top left square. Okay. So basically, if I click anywhere where X is between 0 and 300 and Y is between 0 and 300, then that means I've clicked in this box. So I'm going to say if X is less than or equal to 300 and Y is less than 300, then that means they clicked on box, I'm going to call it box A. Okay, that's what we'll call this box A. So now we're going to say if turn is equal to 1, so if it's player 1's turn, then we're going to make that A value, that A integer that we made way up here at the top, we're going to change A to 0. Okay. Sorry, that's incorrect. We're going to change A to 1. So that means if it's player 1's turn, and if they click on that box, then we're going to change A to 1. Else, so that means if it's player 2's turn, let's just say it was player 2's turn, then we're going to change A to 2 instead. Okay. There's one more thing I almost forgot about. Not only does this have to be true, but we also have to make sure that nobody has already clicked on box A. Like, what if somebody has already taken that spot? We don't want to allow them to click again on that spot. So if they clicked between, if they clicked in that box A, 300 and 300, and as long as A is 0, so as long as A is still equal to 0, meaning nobody has clicked on it yet. So if all 3 of these things are true, then I'm going to check to see whose turn it is, and then I'm going to assign A to either 1 or 2. Okay. Then we want to do something else. We want to change the turn. Okay. So actually, I guess I could do that in here. I could make some braces. So not only will I assign A to 1, but we're also going to change the turn to 2. Okay, so if turn was 1, we're gonna give that spot to player 1, and then we're gonna change turns. So turn will be 2, and then else. This means if it was player 2's turn to begin with, I'm going to give that box to player 2, and then we're going to change the turn to 1. So we're going to flip the turn. All right. So I haven't drawn anything. All I'm doing is I'm saying if the user clicks in box A, then I'm checking to see whose turn it is and giving them that spot and then changing the turn. So these are all just variables that I'm using. Now, oh, and then you'll also notice that I'm saying repaint. Okay, so repaint calls the paint method. So after that happens, I'm going to call the paint method. And then screen is going to be 2, so I'm going to call the draw board method. So then I'm going to go to my draw board, and now I'm going to say here, if A is equal to 1, then I'm going to draw my X image, my Homer Simpson at 0, 0. Okay. Else if A is equal to 2, then I'm going to draw Marge. So this draw board method gets called every time I click. Every time I click somewhere, the paint method is called, and then the draw board method is called. And so it will draw this stuff every single time. And it's going to check to see if my A variable is 1, then I'm going to draw Homer in that spot. Oh, I need to change something here. If A is 2, I need to put that in 0, 0, so in that same box. So this looks after the A box only. Okay. Now, what if A was 0? Then I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to draw an image in that spot. So I'm going to press compile, and let's see if this works. So now, go to 2 players. Okay, good. Nothing's here. And if I click here, nothing, 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 nothing. But if I click here, Homer appears. And then if I click here, nothing will happen yet because I haven't coded the next box. Okay, so you're not going to see Marge yet because I haven't done any of the other boxes. So I will quickly help you with the second box, and then I'm going to leave it up to you to do all the rest of the other boxes here. So let's do the B box, this second box on the top row. So if we go back to, we're going to go down to mouse clicked again. Okay. Yes, so right here is where I clicked on box A. I'm just going to zoom out a tiny bit here so we can see more code. Okay, so then I'm going to say so now we want to do box B, and if I look at my, my draft here, box B has an X value between 300 and 600. And then the Y value is between 0 and 300. Okay, so the X values are between 300 and 600, and the Y values are between 0 and 300. So back to my code here, I'm going to say if X is greater or equal to 300, and X is less than or equal to 600, and Y is greater or equal to 0, and Y is less than or equal to 300. Okay, so that should be the boundaries of box B. And I got to do one more thing. I have to say, and my B variable is 0, meaning nobody has clicked there yet. So as long as nobody has changed the B variable, nobody has clicked in this region, then I'm going to do the same thing as this. So I want to see whose turn it is. So I'm just going to paste that there, but be careful when you're pasting. We got to change this here. So if it's player 1's turn, then B is going to be 1. So we're changing this variable B to a 1. And if it's player 2's turn, we're going to change this B to 2. Okay. Now up in my draw board, I'm going to say if B is equal to 1, then draw Homer. But I don't want to draw him at 0, 0. I want to draw Homer here in box B. So we have to specify the coordinates a little bit past 300, so 302, 0. Okay, and then else if B is equal to 2. So if player 2 has claimed this spot, then we're going to draw the O image or Marge. But don't forget to change the coordinates. That's going to be at position 302. Okay, so now I've looked after my A box and my B box, and now let's test it. So if I compile and run, so these two boxes should work, nothing else. So if I click here and then here, yeah, so it worked. It flipped the player's turn and it gave that box to Marge. But if I run this again, what if I click on the second box first? Yeah, Homer's always first, and then Marge goes second. You could add something kind of cool, like a random. You could have a random number that decides who goes first. But I would say at this point, just choose your X image to go first, your X player to go first. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as an exercise for you to try and get all the other buttons working, and then you're going to test it out. So test clicking all the buttons, or all the squares, and make sure that your image is flip-flop between your X image and your O image. And then in the next few videos, we'll figure out how to check for winners, check for ties, and then maybe even a nice end screen to determine who the winner was. Okay, we'll end this video for now, and we'll see you next time.